lecture series here at the museum. And so far, so good. They've gone really well. Tonight, our topic is the history of Baptist education in Northeast Arkansas, and I think he's going to throw in a little bit about Methodists too. I'm not sure. But anyway, our speaker tonight, he received his master's degree in history from the University of Central Arkansas, his PhD in history from the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. He is currently an assistant professor at Williams Baptist University, and he was appointed by the governor to the review board of the Historic Preservation Department. And mainly, he's the director of our fine museum here. So welcome Rodney Harris, our speaker today. Welcome Rodney Harris.
Yeah, you have to say that my mom's here. She likes when people throw that in. All right, well thank you, Linda. So that camera's going to mess with the way I would normally do this. I would normally pace back and forth, but so I'll try to stay still. So the Abbott Institute was founded at Maynard in Randolph County by the Abbott family in 1894. And while the Abbott family had little education themselves, they saw great value in education. Eli Abbott had a good deal of money that he had made through land speculation and farming in the region. And so he wanted to give back to the community, was his stated reason. The school took female boarders, and they kept a dormitory just down the hill from the school. And young men were expected to locate housing on their own with local families. The Institute drew students from Arkansas as well as other states, primarily Missouri. So the Abbott Institute found that operating independently didn't work very well, and so soon they affiliated with the Arkansas Baptist denomination. They became associated with what today is Ouachita Baptist University in Arkadelphia. And Arkansas Baptist had sought for some time to build a network of schools in areas of, quote, good climate. Put another way, they wanted to build schools away from rivers and lowlands that bred disease. And Maynard provided a good location away from these, quote, death-lurking swamps. This is not just a Baptist method. Here's your Methodist Linda. Not just a Baptist method, but rather a popular method, where Sloan Hendricks and Inboden was associated with the Methodist. Maynard Academy would be associated with Baptist. The Academy, or the Baptist Academy as it came to be known, or called, began in the 9th grade and offered civics, history, English, Latin, Bible, science, and algebra. They also offered special classes in arithmetic, since many of the students planned to take the state teacher's exam and would then typically go to a one-room or two-room school to teach. Well, Jake, you've told me your parents, right? Two-room school?
School is responsible for me being here.
So, extracurricular activities were also available. Basketball, baseball, football. Yes, they played football at Maynard, I'm not sure where. And a literary society. Tuition sounds really cheap, $3.50 a month. But remember when this is. So when you adjust that for inflation, that's $115 a month in tuition. Wow. And it would go up each year by 50 cents from 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. So $15 would go up each year. So students who lived at the school had to pay room and board. They had to pay an extracurricular fee of $4 a month. Again, adjust that for inflation. It's $120 a month for extracurricular activities. These fees added up, and they made this an expensive education. In fact, it was not uncommon for students to spend $20 to $25 per month on fees. So if you adjust that for inflation, that's going to cost you $600 to $750 a month for school. So ultimately, financial reasons will lead to this mainly, but, well, two reasons, finances and reform. Ultimately, the Maynard Baptist Academy becomes an early casualty of education reform in Arkansas. These education reforms are part of the progressive era reforms. In the mid-1920s, Arkansas began to force consolidation of smaller schools and began to develop regional high schools paid for by property taxes. By 1929, more than 1,500 schools were consolidated in Arkansas. And just as a side note, in the next room over, you can look at a lot of those pictures of those small schools and their classes. You can also see a picture over there of another building we'll talk about in just a minute. So once the Maynard School District really develops outside of a one-room school, it took away the incentive, it took away the niche market for the academy. In the end, the school closed, and the buildings were bought by the Maynard School District to serve as a Maynard High School. Today, the only thing left of the Maynard Academy is an arch that was built by the last class in 1927. The arch was moved and restored by the Maynard Alumni Association many years ago. But as these mountain schools closed, and many of them did, typically either as a casualty of public school reform or economics, the impulse to provide Baptist education did not falter or go away. In fact, the academy and institutions of higher learning that followed were part of an ongoing Baptist commitment to education. Arkansas Baptist had opened multiple schools in the state. I'll give you just a few examples. Judson College at Judsonia, which I had never heard of. Shiloh Institute at Springdale, which is today the Shiloh Museum. The Red River Academy near Arkadelphia, and Ouachita Baptist College in Arkadelphia, just to name a few. In 1901, the Mount Zion Baptist Association purchased land in Jonesboro to build a Baptist college. What emerged from this effort was Woodland College. Now, Woodland College would start with just a small amount of funding from First Baptist Blytheville. And in 1904, on the promise of future financial support, they built two buildings, a two-story administration building and a classroom building. But this is really short-lived. By 1913, the college is closed for financial reasons. It's closed because it failed to attract enough paying students, and the Mount Zion Association can't keep the bills paid, and no funding from the State Baptist Association comes through. The buildings were sold as cheaply as possible to the Jonesboro School District and became, and roughly, sit where the Anticamp school sits today. In reality, we know very little about this school. We know a lot more about the next one. The failure of Woodland College, though, did not dampen the desire to create or to build a Baptist college in Northeast Arkansas. A second attempt will emerge. So backers acquired 92 acres on the edge of the Jonesboro city limits. 10 of those acres were inside the city, the remainder outside. Today in Jonesboro, this would be the intersection of Highland Drive and Southwest Drive, where the high school sits. They broke ground on an administration building in the 1920s, or in 1920, I should say, and the school would be named the Jonesboro Baptist College. Now, we could discuss for a while their lack of imagination, but eventually it will become a college here. They're going to build several buildings. The administration building would be a large, three-story building. It would cost more than $200,000 in 1920. The other buildings were the President's Home, Woodland Hall, a girls' dormitory, and a powerhouse to provide electrical power for the campus. The school's master plan called for 8 more buildings to be built in the coming years. So it takes 4 years to build this campus. And in 1924, September 9th, 1924, 6 faculty members welcomed 250 students to the school. Dr. J.N. Mallory served as the president. Mallory had attended Oklahoma University, Baylor University, Peabody College and Peabody College in Nashville. He had previously been on the faculty of Peabody College and Union University. Classes were offered in languages, mathematics, sciences, fine arts, and history. The college also offered a certificate in teacher education. I think more interestingly here is that Jonesboro Baptist College offered the state's only school in pharmacy at the time. Now, there are two versions of this. Some historians claim that Jonesboro Baptist College is the first state's program in pharmacy, and others claim that University of the Ozarks, what is now University of the Ozarks, did. So they competed there for that. Neither program was accredited, though, so it really doesn't matter in the end. When it came to athletics, Jonesboro Baptist College was part of the Mississippi Valley Conference. The conference was made up of West Tennessee Teachers College, now University of Memphis, Murray Normal School, Murray State, Tennessee Junior College, University of Tennessee Martin, Union College, now Union University, and Lambeth College. Today, Lambeth is a branch of the University of Memphis in Jackson. The school competed in football, as well as men's basketball, men's volleyball, and co-ed tennis. Despite the success shown through the college's building program, academic courses offered, and the success on the field of athletics, the school remained on shaky ground financially. Dr. B.D. Gray, the head of the Baptist Home Mission Board, had promised $500,000 in financial support, but this support never materialized in rough economic times. Hard economic times forced the school to look for other means of support, and this led the school to accept a donation in the amount of $1,200 from the Craighead chapter of the KKK. Roughly $17,000 in today's money. The school finally crashed, if you want to put it that way, under financial pressure and closed its doors in 1934. Just as with the campus of Woodland College before it, the Jonesboro School District snapped this property up. It became Jonesboro High School, and it finally is the high school that was blown away in 1973 in the tornado. Some of you, many of you will remember this building. I've seen several pictures of it. So now let's turn our attention to a Baptist leader. This is somebody who I had the pleasure of writing about recently. And that's why I joked with Dr. Swain back here that he was here to correct me. So let's turn our attention to Hubert Etheridge Williams. Dr. Williams is the founder of Williams Baptist University. And at the time that Jonesboro Baptist College is closing or failing, he is the pastor at First Baptist Church, Harrisburg. So he had this sideline seat to watch this university or this college fail. Williams is a native of Casa in Perry County. He was born there on April 8, 1913. He's the son of a progressive Baptist deacon who will impart those political values to his son. He attended Arkansas Polytechnical College in Russellville, Ouachita Baptist College, and the George Peabody School for Teachers in Nashville. But despite the failures of Woodland and Jonesboro Baptist College, Williams still believed there was a place for a Baptist institution of higher learning in the region. By 1941, he had become the pastor at First Baptist Pocahontas. And he argued that such a college would be an effective evangelical tool in the region, and that it had to be built. Now, many people wanted it built in Jonesboro, but others argued that Jonesboro had had its turn. Jonesboro also had a state school, and they saw that as competing, and maybe that is part of the problem. So many supporters of Baptist education had soured on Jonesboro as a potential location for a Baptist college, and Williams thought that Pocahontas might be an ideal home for such an institution. With the support of alumni from both Woodland College, Jonesboro Baptist College, and with past students from Maynard Baptist Academy, he began putting his effort together. So Williams had become something of a civic leader here in Pocahontas in a short time. In fact, he was the chairman of the Pocahontas Chamber of Commerce in 1940, I believe late 1941. And through these activities and others, he had assembled a diverse collection of friends, acquaintances, allies, however you want to put it, local businessmen and political leaders who would help him. Now Williams here, his progressivism is showing a little bit. Unlike many Baptists in his day, he did not take part in the anti-Catholic rhetoric of the day, and this would serve him well. He rejected the anti-Catholic rhetoric of the day, in fact. And that will serve him very well in highly Catholic Pocahontas. He counted among his friends and financial supporters prominent Catholics, such as Ambrose J. Balt Sr., who would give money quietly to the school. Williams was also willing to accept financial support from other Catholics in the community, and other leaders in the community who weren't Baptist. These friendships would be vital to the school. City leaders in Pocahontas agreed to rent the city's recently constructed WPA Community Center, the rock building that we all know at the high school, current cafeteria. The WPA had built it for the city, and the city just didn't know what to do with it. It had become a financial boondoggle. They couldn't pay the bills on it. So they were more than happy to rent it to Williams and then eventually sell it to him. The new Southern Baptist College opened on September 10th, 1941. Williams, who was just 28 years old at the time, became the first president. For a time, he remained the pastor at First Baptist Pocahontas until 1943, in fact. Interestingly, he even had a small apartment constructed in the rock building to serve as his family quarters. And on the night of December 26, 1946, a suspicious fire gutted the building in Pocahontas. And if it had not been for the bravery, possibly stupidity, they're often confused, of the faithful employee, the school's records would have been lost. But the brave act allowed the school to continue because a gentleman ran into the building and carried a filing cabinet out that had all the student records. Now, Williams had already been negotiating to open a branch of the school at Walnut Ridge at the airfield. He was foreseeing that students returning from the war would want to go to school. And so he's already negotiating here for the decommissioned air base near Walnut Ridge. He worked with Arkansas politicos, and eventually he gained ownership of a part of the air base. Both Senator John McClellan and Congressman Wilbur D. Mills assisted in these efforts. In the beginning, the college survived on donations from private donors, church support, and the tuition paid by students. But beginning in 1949, the college would receive a small amount of support from the Arkansas State Baptist Convention. This is why I started writing this. I'm a political historian mainly, and Dr. Williams also ran for governor in 1960. He entered the Democratic primary in 1960, aiming to take out Governor Orville Faubus. So here he is. He's opposing Faubus. He's opposing Attorney General Bruce Bennett and others. And he kicks off his campaign on the lawn of the Lawrence County Courthouse in Walnut Ridge before a crowd of nearly 2,000. It's quite a feat. He had been the president of the college for 19 years, and he used that experience. That's why people should vote for him. He traveled the state, and he even coined a new term, Faubism. He defined Faubism as follows: one of the political pimples on the history, erupting political demagoguery as a result of cheap opportunism of a small politician. He argued that a fourth term for Faubus would be, quote, political terror, that it would give him an unbreakable hold on political power in the state. So Williams angered many people by running. He angered some supporters of the college. He angered some students, apparently. He garnered some criticism that his focus should have been on the college. And he failed to win the primary, obviously. Faubus goes on and wins yet another term. But Williams comes back to Williams as president, of course, and over the coming decades, the college will expand, build new buildings, and offer new academic programs. In 1968, the college officially was adopted by the Arkansas Baptist Convention, which provided increased financial support. In 1989, Southern Baptist became Williams Baptist College, and this year, in 2018, it became Williams Baptist University. Williams has educated thousands of young men and women from Arkansas, the region, and the world. I'm happily beginning my second year at Williams, and the place holds something special to me. Both my parents went there, my grandmother went there, a great uncle went there, and an aunt went there. So I tell all these people who they're at Williams and they graduated from Williams and then came back, well, I didn't do that, but I do have a family connection. It's not really where I thought I would end up, but I'm glad I did. So, my grandmother, by the way, attended in the old rock building out here and lived on Sand Hill in a little cabin, I'm told. And both my parents went for 2 years prior to going to ASU. So I want to leave you with that Baptists have made an impact and continue to make an impact in Northeast Arkansas when it comes to education, among other things, and leave plenty of time for questions. Who has a question?
Where do you go from here?
Where do I go from here on with that?
I'm talking about the university.
Oh, I don't know. We hope to offer more programs, graduate programs, and attract more students. We are up this year. We don't know how much yet. But
What kind of programs did Williams start in Walnut Ridge to catch the veterans?
it was a mixture from what I believe you've even told me. Traditional college classes, more vocational training, even a wood shop, I believe, and Bible classes.
They had photography, I know, and refrigeration and auto body and fender and a lot of different courses like that. The big GI Bill program after the war had a flight school.
Yeah, he really seemed to be ahead of the game on the GI Bill and see it coming. Wonder if Wilbur D. Mills told him about it. Okay, who else?
Ronnie, do you think Dr. Williams's foray into that Democratic primary hurt the college more or helped it, do you think?
I don't see how it hurt it. I mean, there's criticism, but I don't see how. I don't think it drove away any donors that I've read about. I have heard the stories that there were some local Democrats who did not like it because he opposed Faubus.
Yeah.
But to be honest, Faubus's campaign manager was Jim Bland,
Right.
who
Times
belonged to Times
yeah.
Dispatch, and so there was friction between Dr. H.E. Williams and the Walnut Ridge Times Dispatch. And then when Dr. Williams moved in out there, he started a printing shop and he put in the radio station, and so he took advertisers away from the newspaper, so there was real friction between.
He didn't have everything printed right there in town, did he?
He didn't have anything printed in town. In fact, he sometimes had there was animosity between Williams and some leaders in Walnut Ridge. And if you were close to the situation, you could see how both arrived at the position. I mean, it wasn't all, everything in Walnut Ridge was not all bad, and Dr. Williams was not all right, but there just came to be a sort of a standoff.
Well, our new president, Dr. Stan Norman, likes to say that he's found in the history book, 3 or 4 cases where the school should have closed its doors, but Dr. Williams was just too strong an individual to let it happen. I think that's pretty interesting. Dr. Swain, would you agree with that? Put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, I would. But I got there in '64, and I was trying. Gary, you were attended there. What, 59, 60?
59.
59 to 60. Barbara worked in Dr. Williams' office in Little Rock when he was running for governor. She was one of the student typists and whatever.
So I came in after that running, but just a quick observation. I don't want to. Some things you commented on. This was the thing that stood out for me because I was ignorant of when I got here of Southern Baptist College, but I quickly picked up something Jerry touched on, a little bit of the relationship between Southern Baptist College and the city. Not abject animosity necessarily, but it was very, even as ignorant as I was then of politics and that kind of thing, it was very obvious. And I know, and I almost prefer the recording not being on, but I found, oh, he turned it off, good. And I'm not being ugly about it, but it was fascinating to me, is that I observed, and particularly, and that was even later, when I was dean I saw it, but when I became president, I see 2 or 3 sitting here, who I didn't hesitate at all to ask for several thousands of dollars. And I got it every time I asked for it. And part of it was me. Of course, I had affiliated with Pocahontas because I came here in '64 in the church, but I didn't live here. But I was always so excited about it. Right here's one of the jokers over here. He didn't want to see me coming. And Jake sitting up in the front row. But I say that kindly. But I really, the support that I found and the encouragement from Pocahontas, but I saw that change. Jerry, correct me on that. I think beginning, I don't know when, maybe in the mid-90s or 90s, I saw a dramatic change, and I think, correct me on this, I think there's a whole different attitude about the college. The Walton Ridge mayor and others became supportive of other folks, and I think that Walton Ridge finally saw we were building buildings and spending millions of dollars, and there wasn't a penny being spent in Walton Ridge on new construction. And I think they observed that, and I think that made a difference. So I'm not trying to be negative, but it was a fascinating relationship, is a way to say it, man.
I've always wondered if Pocahontas was bitter that the college moved to Walnut Ridge.
I'm
I
starting
can't
to
find
say-
anything about it, but
I'm sorry to say, it sounds like we had a window of opportunity there. We could have snatched you back.
Well,
And we missed it.
being a hillbilly, I always resented that because I came out of the hills of West Tennessee, and then I started living, going to church in Pocahontas, and I built a home here in the '70s. So, you know, from a selfish standpoint, you've got to be in the hills.
surely we
Yeah.
have less mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Healthy.
You mentioned 3 colleges.
You're in the middle of a race.
You mentioned the University of Memphis, and
Yeah.
I did my doctorate. That was in the hills.
Yeah.
You mentioned Union University, where I did my baccalaureate, and it was in the hills. And then you mentioned Peabody, where I did my master's, and that was definitely in the hills in Nashville. So I'm a hillbilly, and I missed that.
But I had always heard that Dr. Williams gave the city of Pocahontas the opportunity to rebuild that building,
See, I don't.
and they turned him down.
I heard that too,
Okay.
which was really stupid.
Probably true. I mean, but you hear there's all sorts of stories about the fire too. One version of the fire is that it was anti-Catholic stuff.
It was people from Walnut Ridge.
But it was clearly arson. I mean, there was an accelerant poured on the floor in the library. Yeah, I mean, it was clearly arson, but nobody knows who did it.
Well, there's one thing for sure, it was several years before the mess was cleaned up out there, because when the new building was built,
Okay.
is when they finally cleaned all the charred timbers out of it and left it as just a rock hull.
And then they built a stage in it at some point.
Yeah, and then about 2 years, was it, after that they finished that building and made a auditorium and a band room and a lunchroom out
Well,
of it.
that's where we had PE when I was in junior high. And then when I got to high school, they made it into a cafeteria.
Well, it was cafeteria in the basement when
Yeah,
it
and
started.
that was the weight room for the football team when I was in high school.
The
Well, I
one
did
thing,
one thing that, actually, I don't want to say much. I'll quit talking just a
Turn
second.
off the camera.
This is okay. This is okay. No, when I got there, Jerry helped me. When I got there in '64, probably the enrollment was maybe 2 or 3 or so. And then during the Vietnam era, the enrollment on campus, we had classes under every building, on top of every building, everywhere, because it reached about 650 or 675 students during that period. But then, by the end of, good or bad, the end of Dr. Williams's tenure, in about 70, what year, Jerry? 72 or 3, give or take, the enrollment was about 250 students. And those were very, very hard times. And Dr. Nicholas, who many know, Jack Nicholas, I think, became the president, and I think did a tremendous job.
And for those, he was married to Dr.
He
Williams'
was
daughter.
married to Dr. Williams' only daughter, and it was hard work for him because I served as his dean, and I've often lamented that during all those years that he worked so hard, he never got to see what Jerry and I saw later on, some more relaxed days from a financial standpoint, because he didn't have that. It was just every year we worked just to stay with it. But eventually, I think the college began to see some better days financially and more support and different things going on. And
For those, I mean, I assume most people in the room know it, but this is Gerald Swain. He was the 5th president? Is that right? 4th or 5th? 5th.
Don't ask me that.
He was the 5th president.
I think
of Williams.
5th. I can name the presidents.
Yeah.
But back to Dr. Williams. He was one of the most unusual persons that I've ever met. Brilliant mind. And just certain things, Jerry, you say on this, but he never referred to you by your first name. Forever. I was just a kid when I got there, 23 or 4 or 5. I was Mr. Swain. And I never heard him call anybody that worked at that college, I don't know what that means, by their first name. But that was just the way he operated. But he was, no one else could have done what he did, bar none.
I've had somebody tell me that he was not easy to like, but he was easy to respect.
He had some flaws, like some of us don't have any. But he had some flaws. But boy, down deep, though, you did. You respected. And of course, here's some of these, this fellow right here, your dad was, I think, had to be in class 2 of mine in those early days.
I have to tell this. I think you gave my mother her only C in college.
He didn't give it to me, I earned it.
But this is an indication. I was always so impressed with the caliber of students that we had. We were a small school, we were a poor school, and we struggled. But my stars, we had kids, maybe if they could afford it or whatever, could have gone anywhere they wanted to go. Well, there's Jerry and Barbara, they're alums. Here are alums. They've done such great things, and I see 1 or 2 others up there, I think. But that always stood out for me. It was just, well, it was just, you were grateful to be a part of it.
And one thing that nobody has said about Dr. Williams that I should say, he was really, and I mean this genuinely, he was passionate about the college training people to spread the gospel. And he really saw, he had a program with African students, and he would go over there and recruit them. And he worked out a deal with them. They all had to go back to Africa. They couldn't stay in this country. And he really liked it when they were majoring in business or when they were in an area other than religion. Because he saw if you trained somebody and you sent them back, it was a great commission. And he really stressed, now he did whatever he needed to do to survive, and when the war was over, and he put in whatever programs you could get students. And it was so much ahead of his time, he started work study before the federal government did. And people would tear down the old buildings and he would find a way. And he started a nursery on campus, and he encouraged ministerial wives to go to school, which was really unusual. And by having that nursery and it being really cheap, he knew, and it was so true, that many of the men couldn't make a living preaching, but if their wives could teach school, the women would make a living and the men could preach. So he was just ahead of his time and an innovative man.
For those of you who don't know this gentleman, this is Jerry Gibbons. He has taught at Williams for 52 years this year.
Oh my God.
We've even named a building after him, and it's still there.
I think Jerry mentioned, it can't be over, and you touched on this. Dr. Williams was not, by any stretch of the imagination, an ultra-fundamentalist, what have you, Baptist.
Now, he wouldn't fit in very well with some Baptists today, would he?
Oh, no. and of course, I was grateful for that because I don't fit in too well either. But no, Dr. Williams, and even I noticed that about him, and I respected that. And I think it was encouraging to us. But no, Jerry summed it up. He was very forward-looking. There was now he was serious about spreading the gospel. Jerry, you touched that, but he just no. He would not be comfortable at all with what he sees going on in some aspects of. I'll shut up.
If I could go back in time with Dr. Williams, they lived in they were our neighbors when he was the pastor at First Baptist, and. Martha Ann was just a little bitty girl at that time. I was just a young girl. And so one Sunday night, he could be very forgetful, because one Sunday night, we learned about this on Monday. Miss Williams told us about it. They got home from church. Martha Ann always went to sleep in church on Sunday night. So they got home from church, and they'd been home for quite a while, got ready and started to go to bed. Miss Williams said, "Martha Ann's not in her bed. Do you know where is she?" And he said, "I don't know." So they looked around the house and they couldn't find Martha Ann. So she said, "You did bring her home from church, didn't you?" And he said, "Well, no, I thought you did." He said, "No, I didn't." So he got in the car and hurried back up to the church, and this was the little bitty Baptist church that used to be here in Pocahontas before it burned. And he found Martha Ann still asleep. So it took him a while to live that down. But he was a fine person.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to mention that the school library, we have a very fine display of Dr. Williams's history there at the college. And the library is open to the public on Monday through Friday and even on the weekends.
I used part of that collection in writing for the encyclopedia about Dr. Williams.
And our digital archive, which is on the library, the school's webpage, and can access a lot of this information, so it's accessible, available to everyone here. And one that I really enjoyed watching myself was a very early video that he made himself, and it was of the school, the Rock Schoolhouse.
Yeah.
And he had a bus, and he had students getting off the bus and going into the school.
Well, we may want to borrow that if they continue to talk about tearing it down.
It is online, available to you freely online to view that. And also the audio recording of his speech when he pronounced himself for running for governor. So that's available too. That's available to everybody. You just go online, click on it, and listen to it or watch it.
You know,
A lot of good information there.
When I was in high school, we were encouraged to use the Williams Library.
Really?
Our Southern Baptist
We
Library.
have a lot of people.
And I don't know if students now do, but it
We
was-
can't get our own students to use the library. Jay?
Well, with my limited experience with Dr. Williams was I found him very difficult to say no to. And Gerald, you were a good
You're the same way.
student.
One of the things that Gerald and I benefited in the early years when we came to teach at Williams is Dr. Williams was a world traveler. He'd just been everywhere that you could name. And he really encouraged Gerald and me to travel, and he encouraged us to take students and even take adults. And he saw that as the Great Commission also. In other words, he was not provincial at all. And even when he was an old man, probably not as old as I am, but I thought he was old, but he and Dr. Humboldt and Dr. Savage, two older religion men, they all went to Africa for a month and preached all over Africa. So he just never really aged like a lot of people where he turned inward, or he kept that. He was reading the year before he died. I mean, he still had an open mind, and he was fun to be around, and he was fun to visit with because he was an exciting person and had been everywhere.
Yeah, good point.
So he leaves Pocahontas First Baptist in '43, I believe that's right. Was he involved in planning the new building at all, or do you know, Eric?
I don't know that he was.
What did you say?
He leaves as pastor in '43, right?
All right.
Was he involved in planning the new building at all?
Because that facility was built in 48, 49.
Right, opened in 49.
I would say no. I don't know.
I just wondered.
One of the things that you might, real quick,
Quite knows
Jerry
about
was
it.
there when the college, when he was there, we had classes. We lived in, we went to classes and military buildings. I lived, Jerry, well, Jerry, tell me you had a house, but I lived in barracks. Virginia and I lived in the barracks. We had our own private rooms, to begin in, but that we were living in barracks, and so we saw it. Gosh, I guess the only thing had been built when I got there was maybe the cafeteria, maybe the gymnasium, but that's what we used, period.
Well, Dr. Ken Startup, who just retired at Williams, wrote the history of Williams. And if I remember the story correctly, you were ready to go back to Union to teach, right? You were leaving.
Yeah, and I won't talk long. I did. You're right. I had just finished my doctorate, and I loved Williams Baptist. And when I got there, Jerry, it wasn't a pretty place, was it, son?
No. Well, my aunt described it as a fertilizer plant belching yellow stuff onto you all the time.
Oh, I had one of my sports cars just ruined from that. But what I was going to say about that, in 60, I became dean in 73. All right, I finished my doctorate in 1970, and I taught a year, and I'd been called from Union University to go back as head of the Department of Education, or chair of the division in teaching education. And I had to make a decision by Friday night. I had 2 weeks. We went over and looked at the school. We looked about a place for a daughter, but I was going to make about $6,000 more money. And I just didn't feel good about it because I had such respect for the college, but they didn't need me. We had 3 history teachers. We only needed 1. Enrollment was down, so somebody had to go. But the Lord takes care of things. I don't say that lightly. One of the fellows took a church in Walter Ridge, and one of the other fellows became disabled, not able to teach. So there was a place for me, and I turned that Union University job down. And because on Thursday night, Jack Nicholson came down and asked me. He just become president. Would I become the dean? And it was an answer to prayer, but I didn't know what was going to happen.
See,
but I've never regretted it.
You could have possibly gotten out of that seat if he had just gone to Union.
That's right.
All right, everybody else have a question?
Let me add something to what Gerald said. What had happened between Vietnam, when I came to Williams, there was over 400 freshmen. But when the Vietnam War came down, a lot of people dropped out of school. And the fall that Three Rivers Community College opened in Poplar Bluff, we lost 150, 175 students. And then in a year or two, the community college opened in Forest City. Then the one opened in Blytheville. And we had lived off of those areas. And fortunately, Gerald and Jack saw that. And they saw that if we did not make a move toward 4 years, that we were going to be frozen out. We couldn't compete with Black River and, you know, the cheaper tuition.
There were some rough
So
times.
it was that transition between being a regional school. When I came to Williams, a third of our enrollment came from the Boot Hill, Missouri, and Three Rivers just took that out. And I mean, almost overnight, when they opened, we didn't get them anymore. Wow. So anyway, Dr. Williams was struggling. I don't think he quite knew what to do to compete with that. So,
well, let me end it with a story. So I had finished my PhD, and my wife and I, we didn't think, I mean, most of you know my wife, but we weren't coming back here. It wasn't that we didn't want to come back here, we just didn't think there would be a job for me here. You know, you go to school for 6 years and you got to have a job after that. And so we had applied everywhere, and we were literally sitting in our house in Fayetteville one night, and I looked at this website that advertises small Christian school jobs, and I read, there's a job open in Walnut Ridge. And pardon me for putting it this way, but my wife's comment was, well, I'll be damned, we're moving home. I told Dr. Norman, our new president, that over lunch back late last semester. He goes, that sounds more like a mother-in-law problem. So, yeah, I never envisioned being back here. It's a really unique place to work. In fact, my office is next door to a woman. How long? Joy's been there 54 years, at least?
Maybe about 8, 9 years.
Anyway, she's still there every day. She was there when Mom and Dad were there. And Jerry's been there 52 years. So anyway, it's a unique place to work, and I really enjoy it. And you've been quiet, Blake. You haven't talked.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Just
this is Blake Perkins, who most of you met him the other night. So without anything else, that can be it. Thank you, guys.